Hey everybody, Joshua Fields Milburn from the Minimalists. Welcome back to Living Room Conversations. We're here in my living room in Los Angeles, and today's question is from Jeffrey. Jeffrey asks, what book or books do you recommend to help me get out of debt? Well, let me tell you. First, before I even recommend a book, I've got a few books that I'll recommend depending on what circumstance that you're in. I also wrote an essay about this. The plan that I used, that I sort of formulated based on the experience that I had. Before embracing minimalism in my 20s, I had reached the sort of pinnacle of supposed success, but along with that American dream came the American debt. And I had excessive amounts of debt, over $100,000, close to $500,000 if you count my mortgage. And I felt overwhelmed by it. In fact, I felt so tethered to a life that I didn't want to live anymore because of the debt that I had. And so when I started simplifying my life, the main reason for me was so I could regain control of my finances. And eventually I wrote an essay called Financial Freedom, 5 Difficult Steps to Get Out of Debt. I'll put a link to that below. It's just theminimalists.com/freedom. And in that plan, I basically just talk about the 5 steps that I took to help me regain control of my financial life. And a lot of the wisdom that I picked up over the years came from this book right here. It's the first book I'm going to recommend. It's Dave Ramsey, and it's Total Money Makeover. In fact, I often buy this book by the case and hand it out to friends and families and listeners of the podcast. And this has a great plan, an in-depth plan to help you get out of debt. Dave Ramsey also has something to help you with your budget called it's an app called Every Dollar. And it helps you, instead of having the pen and paper budget, which is the way I did it before there was an app available, he helps you out with this app, and it's a free app. It's called Every Dollar. And beyond that book, there are a few books I recommend, all of which are actually from the folks in the Dave Ramsey universe. In fact, Ryan and I are going out on tour next month with some folks from the Ramsey team. And the first person we're going out with is a guy named ONeill. And he wrote this book here. It's called The Graduate Survival Guide, 5 Mistakes You Can't Afford to Make in College. So if you're in college, or if you know someone in college who doesn't want to have this massive amount of debt once they graduate, then this is the book for them. But also, a lot of the lessons in here are applicable to someone my age. I'm 36 years old, and I wish I would have learned these lessons when I was 20. As opposed to when I was in my 30s. In fact, I wasn't debt-free until I was in my early 30s, and that's when I wrote that essay about financial freedom. So ONeill is going to be with us in Birmingham. I'll put a link to that event below on July 20th. It's called the Simply Southern Tour. We're going to talk about money and minimalism during that tour. And then after that, we're going to be in Louisville with Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan is the author of this book, Retire Inspired. And so he talks about retirement. Now, the time we often talk about retirement is when it's too late, when we're already 59 and a half and we're like, oh crap, I didn't plan for retirement. But did you know by the time you're my age, by the time you're 35, you should have twice your income saved already? And he actually puts together some formulas in here to help you plan for retirement. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? And I think the same is true for planning for retirement. The best time to start was when you were 18, but if you're not 18 anymore, the second best time to start is right now. So Retire Inspired, if you want to start thinking about retirement, I think it's a great book, great resource. He's going to be with us on the Simply Southern Tour, talking about money and minimalism and retirement, as well in Louisville on July 22nd, I believe. Yeah, July 22nd. We'll put a link to that event below as well. And then finally, the third and final city on the Simply Southern Tour, we're going to be with Rachael Cruz. And what a wonderful book she has here called Love Your Life, Not Theirs. And she talks a lot about money in this book. She's going to be with us in Nashville on July 24th. But the other book that I really recommend of hers, she wrote with her father, Dave Ramsey. It's called Smart Money, Smart Kids. And I have a 5-year-old daughter. And now is the time that I want to start instilling these principles about being responsible with money with a 5-year-old. I wish someone would have done that with me. In fact, I can remember I have one teacher from high school I remember really well. His name was Pete. The only teacher we didn't have to call by his last name, coincidentally. And he's the first person who ever taught me how to balance a checkbook. And that has been more helpful to me than any other of the sort of information that I had to regurgitate for a week, and then instantly it sort of faded out of my brain off into the ether. And so if you want to come see us talk about money and minimalism, it's called the Simply Southern Tour. I'll put a link below, but I'll put a link to these books below as well, because I think they're important books. If you want to start instilling the advice to your kids, that's a great book. If you want to learn about comparison, then Love Your Life, Not Theirs is a great book. If you want to think about retirement, Retire Inspired. If you're college-aged or just getting out of college, 5 mistakes you can't afford to make in college. And then, of course, the sort of financial Bible, as it were, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I would encourage you to check that out. I'll put links to all those below. Also, our tour stops. If you like these videos, you can subscribe. And if you have a question for these living room conversations, just leave it below in the comments. All right, y'all. See you tomorrow.